Hey, what's up you guys? So, I've been going down a rabbit hole again. You know how that goes. It starts with one little video, one weird article, and then it's 4 a.m. and I'm questioning literally everything. What if the craziest conspiracy theory you've ever heard was true? Not the silly stuff, not the stuff that's easy to debunk. I'm talking about the things that make you feel a chill, the ones that have just enough evidence to make you think, maybe it's not all just a story. From mind control experiments to government cover-ups no one talks about. These aren't your typical tinfoil hat theories. These are the ones with declassified documents, with eyewitness accounts, with a paper trail that just stops. They're the stories that have been buried, intentionally forgotten, because the truth is way more terrifying than any fiction. These are real, documented, hidden. I've spent weeks digging into these, and honestly, it's changed how I see the world. It's like pulling back a curtain and realizing the stage is set up completely differently than you thought. So, get comfortable, maybe grab a blanket, because we're about to dive deep into 5 conspiracies that are so dark, so real, they'll make your skin crawl. And I'm warning you now, stick around for the whole video, because once you hear number 5, you won't sleep tonight. I'm serious. It's the one that's been haunting me the most. Let's just get into it. Okay, so let's start with one that is it's confirmed. It happened. It's called Operation Sea Spray. Picture this, it's 1950, San Francisco. People are just living their lives, going to work, taking the streetcar, looking out at the bay. They have no idea that the US Navy is right there, just offshore, conducting one of the largest human experiments in history. They took a ship, filled it with what they thought were harmless bacteria, and just sprayed it. They released this massive cloud of germs into the air, and for 6 days, it just drifted over the city, over 800,000 people breathing it in. The entire point was to see how a biological weapon would spread across a major American city. They wanted to know how vulnerable we were. So, they used their own citizens as guinea pigs without a single word of warning. They didn't ask for consent, they didn't tell anyone what was happening. People just started getting sick. They flooded the hospitals with what they thought was a weird, rare type of pneumonia. The government watched it all happen, taking notes, collecting data while people were suffering. It's just, the level of betrayal is insane to me. And here's where it gets really dark. One of the hospitals recorded a sudden spike in these infections right after the test. At least 11 people were hospitalized, and one man, Edward Nevin, died. His family had no idea for decades why he suddenly got sick and passed away. The government denied any connection for years, saying the bacteria was harmless, but they knew. They knew there was a risk, and they did it anyway. Imagine looking up at the sky, seeing a strange fog roll in, and having no idea it was an attack by your own government. So everyone knows the name Yuri Gagarin, right? The first man in space. It's in all the history books, a huge moment for the Soviet Union and the world. But what if he wasn't the first? What if there were others before him, who never came back? This is the theory of the Lost Cosmonauts, and it is chilling. The idea is that during the intense space race, the Soviet Union was so desperate to beat the Americans that they were sending people up in rockets that just weren't ready. And when those missions failed, when the cosmonauts died, they just erased them, wiped them from history. The most compelling and honestly terrifying evidence comes from 2 Italian brothers, Achille and Giovanni Giudica Cordiglia. They were amateur radio operators in the 1960s who built this crazy listening station in a bunker. They claimed they intercepted multiple Soviet space transmissions that were never meant to be heard. They recorded what they believe was the sound of a struggling cosmonaut's heartbeat as they died in orbit. They even claimed to have picked up a frantic final transmission from a female cosmonaut, Ludmila, as her capsule burned up on re-entry. You can listen to these recordings online, and hearing her say, in Russian, "I am hot, I see a flame," it's horrifying. The Soviet Union and now Russia has always denied this. They say the recordings are fakes, that these cosmonauts never existed. But there are little clues. There are photos of early cosmonaut teams where some members have been airbrushed out. There are stories of prominent rocket engineers who suddenly disappeared. It paints this picture of a ruthless program that treated its heroes as completely disposable. The thought of someone dying alone, floating in the endless silence of space, and then having their very existence denied by their own country, it's a level of coldness that's hard to even comprehend. Alright, this next one is It's really upsetting. I'm just giving you a warning now. It's called Project Sunshine. In the 1950s, during the peak of the Cold War, the US government was terrified of nuclear fallout. They needed to understand the long-term effects of a substance called strontium-90, which is a radioactive isotope found in nuclear bombs. They needed to know how it was getting into the human body and what it was doing, especially to children. So, to get the data they needed, they came up with a plan. A truly ghoulish, unthinkable plan. They started secretly harvesting body parts from the recently deceased without the knowledge or permission of their families. And their primary targets were babies and young children. Their bones were still growing, which made them perfect for studying how strontium-90 accumulated in human tissue. Agents for this project, which was run by the Atomic Energy Commission, were essentially body snatchers. They would go to hospitals and morgues all over the world and take samples, legs, entire torsos, whatever they could get, from dead infants. The parents were never told. They would bury their child grieving, having absolutely no idea that parts of their baby had been stolen for a secret government study. One of the scientists involved later admitted, "If you're trying to get a sample of a whole human body, the easiest way to do that is to get a stillborn." Can you even imagine the sheer violation of that? It wasn't just a few cases. They collected over 1,500 samples. It's a story about how fear can make people do the most monstrous things, all under the guise of national security. Okay, if you're a fan of Stranger Things, this is going to sound really familiar. The show is fiction, right? But the conspiracy theory that inspired it, the Montauk Project, is presented by some people as 100% real. The story goes that deep beneath a decommissioned Air Force station at Camp Hero in Montauk, New York, the government was running a series of horrifying experiments. We're talking way beyond MK Ultra. We're talking about things that sound like they're straight out of science fiction: psychological warfare, time travel, and teleportation. The legend really took off with a man named Preston Nichols, who claimed he had recovered repressed memories of working there. He described a massive underground facility where they would kidnap runaway children and teenagers, who they called the Montauk Boys, and subject them to intense trauma and mind control experiments to try and awaken psychic abilities. The goal was to create psychic spies and super soldiers. They would supposedly strap these kids into a chair, blast them with electromagnetic radiation, and try to make them manifest objects or see through other people's eyes. It gets even weirder. Nichols claimed the experiments culminated in ripping a hole in space-time, creating a portal to the year 1943. He even says they unleashed a monster from the subconscious of one of the psychics, a creature made of pure energy, that wrecked the facility before they could shut the project down. Now, is it true? There are no official documents, just stories from people who claim to have been there. But the parallels to Stranger Things, the secret lab, the kidnapped kids with psychic powers, the portal to another dimension, the monster, it's all there. It makes you wonder, did the Duffer Brothers just have a great imagination, or did they hear a story that was closer to the truth than we think? This last one. This is the one that really got to me. It's not as famous as the others, but it's so much more unsettling because it feels like it could still be happening. It's a pattern, a theory known as the Great Silence. It focuses on the alarming number of brilliant black scientists, inventors and doctors, especially in the mid-20th century, who made groundbreaking discoveries and then just disappeared. They didn't just quit their jobs, they vanished off the face of the earth and their work vanished with them. And the mainstream news? Complete silence. Think about it. We hear stories about people like Dr. Charles Drew, who revolutionized blood storage but died after a car accident under suspicious circumstances. But this theory goes deeper. It points to physicists who were on the verge of new energy sources, chemists who developed radical new materials, doctors who found potential cures for major diseases. They would file a patent or publish a preliminary paper, create a buzz in their small scientific community, and then nothing. Their labs would be cleared out, their families told they moved away, their research confiscated or lost. The terrifying implication is that there was, and maybe still is, a concerted effort to suppress technologies or cures that could upset the existing power structures. A free energy source would tank the oil industry. A simple cure for cancer would destroy a multi-billion-dollar pharmaceutical industry. The theory suggests that these brilliant minds, who happen to be black and therefore more marginalized and easier to erase from the narrative, were silenced. They were either bought out, threatened, or worse. The Great Silence isn't about one event. It's about a pattern of missing people and missing progress. A void where world-changing breakthroughs should be, and that is the most terrifying thought of all. So, yeah, that's a lot to take in. From a whole city being used as a lab, to scientists being erased from history. It's heavy stuff. It makes you realize that the world we see on the surface, the one they present to us in the news and in history books, might just be a carefully curated story. And the real truth, the darker, more complicated truth, is buried just beneath. It makes you question who you can trust and what's really going on behind the scenes. It's easy to dismiss it all as crazy, but when you look at the evidence for some of these, it's hard to ignore. Which one freaked you out the most? Was it Project Sunshine, the Lost Cosmonauts? For me, it's the Great Silence. The idea that progress could be intentionally stopped, that people could be disappeared just to protect profits and power, that's a different kind of evil. I really want to know what you guys think, so please let me know in the comments. And if you made it this far and you're as obsessed with this stuff as I am, comment below and hit subscribe if you want to go deeper into what they don't want us to know. Because, honestly, I feel like we've only scratched the surface here. There are so many more stories, so many more rabbit holes to go down. It feels important, you know? To not let these stories be forgotten, to keep asking questions even when it's uncomfortable. The truth is out there, we just have to dig it up. Thanks for watching, you guys. Stay safe and maybe sleep with a light on tonight.